Okay, good evening and welcome to the Home Miners Hangout, a new fortnightly experience for you. We're in the company of Steve Whyte of HomeMiners.net. How are you this evening, Steve?
Not bad, not bad. I'm kind of just sitting at the airport, making another trip back to Portugal and getting everything started out for some other investors.
Amazing, amazing. So, Heathrow side coming out to Portugal this very evening.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting at Heathrow. I actually have to go board my flight in about 25 minutes. So hopefully the show is long enough for most investors or people that want to get involved in the Portuguese market.
Yep.
But this is an average couple of weeks for me or this happens every couple of weeks for me. I travel to Portugal once or twice a month for 4 to 7 days, depending on the
Fantastic.
client's needs.
All right. I love the lifestyle, and we recognise and realise that you may have to leave and go and catch your plane. You've brought a special guest along tonight, and this is how it'll be, I think, on these fortnightly outings. We'll chat with you. We'll catch up with what's going on at Home Miners here in Portugal, and invite members of your community onto the screen as we'll do tonight with Fernando in just a moment. And before we go, speak to Fernando. How are things going generally for you at the moment? Any
Um,
updates from the
to be
Home Miners?
honest, really good. We're waiting for a couple projects to finish the renovations, but we're taking on a lot more applicants. So we're not doing so much of joint ventures. So we are taking on joint ventures, but we're doing a lot more property sourcing for other investors in the market. Just because we do a lot of the footwork that most investors would do, for example, viewing properties, getting contractors in, making sure the numbers make sense. We do the complete footwork when it comes to investing in Portugal, and I guess our return clients are kind of showing that the work that we're putting in is paying off and it's real and it's something that people want and need.
Brilliant. Excellent. So tell us a little bit about Fernando, our special guest this evening. How do you guys know each other?
So Fernando Nunes, I actually met him through a group called Cashflow Tribe back in Canada when I was investing in Canada back in the day. He was one of the leaders in there and one of the guys that I really kept myself stuck to. He's the person that will tell you like it is and kind of doesn't beat around the bush when it comes to giving you the real advice or answers. So he's always someone that if I ever am questioning something that I'm doing, I bounce my ideas off him. I kind of look at him like a mentor. But
Fantastic.
he's someone that is doing very well in the Portuguese market and as well in the Canadian and US market.
Great to hear. All right. Let's bring you onto the screen and get to know Fernando a little bit better. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Carl and Steve. Good to see you again, Steve. Carl, pleasure being here. Thank you.
Well, you've heard Steve's at the airport in Heathrow. I'm in somewhat
As
Porto,
usual,
Silver Coast. Yes, indeed. Where are you this evening, Fernando?
I'm at my home actually in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. And can we begin by you telling us a bit about your connection with Portugal, what you love about the place, what's going on for you here?
Yeah, so both my parents are actually from Caldas de Rainha, right? So,
No.
kind of central. Absolutely,
All
sir.
right. Yeah.
Both my parents are from there. My mom grew up in a small area near Caldas called Foz do Areio. So, I
Fabulous.
grew up going there. Always loved it. Always feel so connected to it there. When I was 18, I actually got my Portuguese birth certificate done and then waited and waited and waited. And I was there a couple of years ago. So I actually started investing in real estate in 2020-ish, right?
Wow.
And then I made a trip there in 2021 for some family stuff. And something just felt different. Something just felt different that time. It's actually the first time I'd gone in my life really as an adult without anybody else. No kids, no spouse, no nothing, right? And it's this connection that I felt. I wake up in the morning. So again, staying in Foz, I wake up in the morning. I go get my coffee. Sorry, I don't drink coffee, so I go get my ukal, right?
Metaphorically speaking, yeah. Because
Yeah,
everyone else is going to get their coffee here, right?
yeah. No, I get my ukal. I get my little, mishta sandwich, and I go sit by the water and kind of have that. And then I get my workout in, and I don't know, just this amazing connection that I felt like I belonged at home, and that's kind of really what triggered my need to want to take what I learned here as an investor and start applying it there. I saw, you know, this want to create comfortable spaces for people to stay, even when they're trying to relocate. as well as then as I started looking into it, looking into creating affordable housing for people who live there, understanding the challenge that exists there for especially young people getting started. So yeah, that's kind of my connection to it, and it
How
goes
lovely.
deep.
How lovely. Just up the road from me. Foz do Louro is absolutely fantastic. That's a
Yeah, I
great
love it.
place to invest and be, isn't it? And that's,
It is.
that's a lovely scene you create in our mind's eye there of having your ukal, which is a chocolate milk drink first thing in the morning, looking out over the Atlantic and thinking about your strategy over here, which is, could you tell us about that? What is your approach here? And maybe what's so special or your particular angle when it comes to being Canadian and thinking about Portugal?
So it's amazing. Listen, it's the secret that's no longer a secret, right? The beauty, the way of life, the people, the food, everything. Oh, look, Sue's from Newfoundland. Hi. So it's the way of life in Portugal, right? The amount of interest that exists there now. So really my initial thought when I wanted to do this was create a simple way for Canadians to be able to invest in Portugal. Investing in any kind of foreign market can be scary at points, even when you're just going straight across the border for us to the US. But so understanding, the differences in the tax rules and just even getting things done, the language barrier, all those kinds of things that exist. I wanted to create a simple process for Canadians to be able to just invest with me, and I can take care of the rest for them, right? So that's really where it started. And it's amazing the amount of interest that I've gotten from here. Every time I say something about wanting to invest there, getting started there, everyone, just the excitement builds. People want to jump on calls with me and have a discussion. There seems to be a ton of interest. So I'm loving right now helping people and educating them on what it's like.
So the global buzz about Portugal is certainly being felt in Canada then?
Oh, I think it's legitimately everywhere, but yeah, definitely Canada, US. There's a huge attraction to it for sure, especially right now with the way that life feels here.
Yes.
And I know I tell this to people all the time. I know for people living and working in Portugal and earning an income in Portugal, life's still not easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big difference for people, especially in my investor community here, who've been able to create forms of passive income. One of the things I tell them is, they have this number in mind here of what they need for their passive income to be able to retire or to just give themselves that time freedom, that life freedom that they're seeking. And that's probably like half of what they would need here is what they would need in Portugal to live a happy life, comfortable life, and to continue to grow. Right. So
you get their attention with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You start breaking down the numbers for them and people are like all ears, on the edge of their seats. Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. We're seeing Steve make his way through Heathrow. Have you got anything you want to ask or add, Steve?
Yeah, I think, how do I put this? I think one of the biggest things that I want to hear from out of Fernando is his experience of dealing with the Canadian market and why he's coming into the Portuguese market. Because we all know that there's a mass amount of people looking to retire, and we all know that there's a mass amount of people that want a better lifestyle. But a lot of people think that, oh, I can just go over to Portugal and buy a house for 100,000 euros and I'll get a mansion right in Lisbon. But it's really never like that at all. And maybe I want you to touch on more of why you're choosing, apart from, I guess, personal interests like being Portuguese, but as an investor, why do you wish to invest in Portugal than Spain or Cyprus or other countries?
Good to know. Yeah, those days are over, aren't they, Fernando? Of 100,000 in Lisbon.
In Lisbon, yes, and that's actually what was going to be part of my answer to Stephen is, man, I wish that I had thought about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I remember going there as a kid, not even as a kid, teenager, even in my early 20s, and things were just crazy cheap, like so much cheaper now. In fact, going back to even when the escudo existed before the euro existed, I remember feeling super rich as a kid because you're pulling out a 100 note out of your pocket. But anyways, so I wish that I could have gone back. Now, do I think that the run is over in Portugal? Absolutely not. In fact, I think we're really at a strong point right now where the infrastructure is almost catching up to support the continued growth in the market, right? I think The early adopters have come through. There's almost like this secondary wave that's coming through now. You're seeing more institutional investing. Again, the infrastructure, the rail system that's being built. We'll see if the second airport is ever actually built, right? It's only been talked about for 100 years.
Yeah.
But do you see the infrastructure catching up? Right. And so I think that's going to support continued growth. So I think it's still an excellent time to jump in. So Stephen, to answer your question more specifically as to why Portugal for me versus those other places, the answer is maybe a little uninteresting on my part. It is the personal connection, not just because I'm from there, but because I can provide a distinct advantage to people here in Canada, knowing the market, speaking the language, having my citizenship, having everything there in place, that I can provide that. Now, will I continue to grow beyond? Perhaps. But there is so much to do there. And then the other part of it is I actually see an emergence in the market in Portugal as well for maturity, financial maturity, investment maturity for the people that are there. I think you've seen this as well, Stephen, right? You and I have talked about this a little bit about some of the practices that exist here in North America. We see it in the UK as well. Ways to finance investments, ways to get investors on board, the kinds of returns that we're able to offer, but to people who, and I say this respectfully, because of the short amount of time that society in Portugal has actually had to develop coming out of the dictatorship that existed up until the 70s, right? The financial maturity sometimes in education isn't fully there, hasn't come along yet. People don't understand, that they can create all this financial wealth and freedom for themselves. So I think that's still coming along. And I think there's a unique opportunity to help establish that as well, right? And educate people in the space. And like I said, then it goes back to creating the affordable housing that exists there.
If I may interrupt, you're in the middle of that, aren't you? Because one might imagine, and I see a Portugal resident headline today: foreign investment in Portuguese property triples in 10 years. That your focus would be on, hey, Canadians, look at Portugal, and I can help you with that. But I think also you're talking to the Portuguese as well, aren't you? In checking their own market, as it were, and understanding it better, and getting more financially literate, as I think you were alluding to there. And what I love about what Steve does, and I suspect it's the same for you as well, the early adopters were the kind of heavyweight investors, weren't they? They saw an opportunity, they put their money in, and it was a fairly straightforward quid pro quo. It seems that the new investors are slightly different people who are bringing on board a personal development angle as well, not only the development of their personal wealth, but the development of themselves and changing their mindset around money, the big, the rich dad, poor dad sort of ethic, and what you can learn in the process of investing in Portugal, in property in Portugal. Is that true, all that I've just said?
Yeah, Stephen, I want to hear your thoughts on that, and then I have my thoughts as well.
As in not just attracting foreign investment, but attracting Portuguese interest in investing in their own country.
I guess on my aspect of things, I generally, when I go to fix and flip properties, so that's where I buy, fix, and sell properties for a profit, I generally try and direct my home sales to Portuguese people. Yes, there's foreigners coming over to Portugal and they're coming in droves, but the general amount of people that are actually purchasing property in Portugal are Portuguese. It's generational wealth being transitioned. It's things like, people are selling off some people will inherit 5-6 houses and they've sold them all off, and now they're just trying to find themselves a forever home, but they don't want to deal with all of the, I guess, the crap behind it that comes with dealing with contractors, dealing with architects, dealing with the local camera. They just want a turnkey investment or a turnkey property that they can live in. So what we try and do is focus on what the market is offering. So let's take, for example, right now I'm really focusing on the market of Lausanne. In Lausanne, this area, it's got a very high demand for student rentals. It's got a very high demand for luxury properties. It's got a very high demand for multi-unit homes or affordable housing. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to build all of those things and do things like, for example, find a big house and split it into 2 or 3 units. I'm actually, one of the reasons why I'm going to Portugal is that tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'm viewing a property that I think it's a 9-bed house, but it's for under 100,000 euros. But there's demand for properties between 130 and 140,000. So if I can make the numbers make sense when it comes to fixing and flipping the property for a profit, there we go. Not only am I helping myself and my investors, but I'm also providing properties and places for people to live in Portugal.
I think that's known as the great Steve White reframe, isn't it? Because the multiple occupation is not a new thing in Portugal, is it? But families would have done that. But now you're taking that same ethic or design and making it available to a different audience, which is really smart. And those sort of properties are available here in central Portugal, of course. And it's not what everybody's chasing after. But I don't want to give away too much of your IP live on GMP TV tonight. And your angles. We do have a question from Suze in Canada. Has there been any progress or changes to real estate inheritance in Portugal? Many relatives needing to agree on a sale. I don't think there's been that much movement there, but they will be encouraged to do so if the incentive's right, which is the end you're working on, Steve, I think.
Yeah, so there actually has been a little bit of change. From what I know of, I think it happened like maybe 2 or 3 months ago. There was, now it's a majority. I believe it's when the government came in, they changed the rule. So now it's a majority instead of everyone having to agree.
Right.
So this is also an incentive for people to purchase property as well too. There's, people want to get rid of properties because they don't want to deal with the tax that comes with it as well too. So there's been quite a few changes, like even having students purchase property, or I shouldn't say students, people under the age of 35 that want to purchase property. Right now, Portugal is giving 100% mortgages. No one seems to be talking about this or saying like, hey, I can get my kid a property for absolutely nothing.
My
I mean, it won't be absolutely
34-year-old kid, but as well, not just kid, but like up to 35 years of age.
Yeah, up to 35 years of age. Yes, it's not technically zero because you still have to pay legal fees, taxes. Sometimes you don't have to pay taxes depending on the municipality. But in most cases, I think you're spending at the max of maybe 5,000 in fees, and you can get a house that you can afford, or a house that reflects your, I guess, your income. Is the best way to put it.
And I think that's one of the things there when I talk about that financial literacy, right? And just that knowledge. It's a great point, Steve. Like that is 100% financing is free money. It's not because you're paying an interest, but it's basically free money because you're going to jump into the market and that's going to appreciate for you over time, right? It is giving you a heck of a head start in life that most places don't get. Most people
I think that's something that you taught me of good debt and bad debt, because I was always looking at properties that we could purchase cash, and you were explaining to me, well, you can also make the same kind of profits from purchasing properties with mortgages. And I think that's something that maybe Portugal needs to help the younger generation with, or even just the general population with, is understanding good debt and bad debt.
Yeah. And Carl, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
No, I write for the Portugal Resident, and I would love to write an article aimed at Portuguese people 35 and under. So they get, it's like things have been a certain way for so long, they might not be expecting an offer of this kind and understand the value of it.
Correct. No, you're absolutely right. And going back to your question earlier about, foreign investment and also local, not only investors, but just local residents, I think there's an opportunity for local residents to take advantage of the foreign investment.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things that I love what Steve is doing around the education side of what he's tried to bring to locals there is how to source these off-market deals themselves. Right. So there's a way that you can create excellent income, excellent long-term equity in these deals. There's ways that you can create wealth for yourself by taking advantage of the interest that foreign investors have in the market.
Yeah.
Right. Some of those families who are, hesitant to sell their properties because of tax issues, right? Or because they don't want to pay tax. That's another part is, the fear of paying tax, but you're paying tax on something that is like still a profit. But you could put yourself as a partner on this deal, bring in the investor capital to come in with you, And there are ways that you can do so then in a corporation even that can give you tax incentives.
Yeah.
Right? That lessens that. So you can take yourself from a position of like, I have this property. I don't know what to do with it. I can't do anything with it. It's useless to me, but I'm going to pay a ton of tax on it because it's not worth much in its current state, to let me partner up with someone.
Yeah.
They become the investor in it. We turn this into something that helps the housing issue in the country, right?
Yes. Yes.
Creates a valuable asset in the market and now can turn a proper profit for you, as opposed to it just being something that sits on your hands, right?
Yes.
So I think there's this incredible opportunity for the locals to take advantage of the extraordinary interest that exists from foreign investors.
Yes, and that's the turning point we're looking at, where the property that's empty, that is multiply owned, if that's the right way of looking at it, it's too painful to sell it, really. Whereas now it might be, the feeling might be generating, it might be the awareness around it might be generating because of what you two are doing, to say, actually, it'd be painful not to sell it, or not to put it into development, or not to partner up with someone else and realize the potential of this asset that's been there for maybe decades, sometimes falling apart in central Portugal somewhere. Now, so we'll come to your question in a moment, Abdul Alim. Thank you for that. And thank you for being here tonight. But I want to ask, if a Portuguese person, 35 or under or not, is hearing this sometime in the future and says, okay, I get all of that. It makes complete sense, but I don't know where to start. I don't know the first thing about how to get on that property ladder, as it were, and have a meaningful conversation with Steve or Fernando. How do they do that?
I think honestly the best way is to just give me a shout, because I give free consultations and try and direct people in the right direction. I don't charge for to, you know, if people want to ask questions, of course, if you're trying to get me to figure out how to structure your deal and what you're doing with,
Yes.
I kind of have to charge for that. That's part of my business. But if you're just looking on where to get started, you could try partnering with people like myself or Fernando, or you
Yeah.
can try partnering with other investors in the area. I try and explain to people that, you know, four heads are better than one. So, you know, I'd say about 80% of the projects I take on have no more than 120,000 euros into them. If you get four people that bring in 30,000 euros, you have the entire buy, fix, and sell process already sorted out. The only thing that you have to really manage is to sort out the contractors and make sure that they work in a time frame that works for you.
All right. Have a chat with Steve then is the answer to that question. And maybe just tune in. You know, this is going to be a fortnightly thing. This is a hangout for home miners. Get to know Steve, get to know the special guests who come along. We've got Fernando Nunes in Canada tonight who's joining us, and just get a sense of what Steve's about, and ask questions on the screen, which Abdul has done here. Is there a monthly income model? I don't really understand what that means. Do you, Steve?
No, I'm not too sure either. That's a very vague question. If you could break that down a little bit better for us, Abdul, that'd be great.
And there's a WhatsApp group as well where you can keep the conversation going. And I don't know if I have permission to give the link to that, but that might be another way of staying in touch for anyone who's interested in what we're talking about tonight. Are there still, or was it 700,000 empty houses in the country? Sounds like an extraordinary figure. What would you say about that, Fernando? Do you know any of the stats of empty properties?
I don't know if it was 700,000. I think the last figure I heard was somewhere in the 400,000s, but I do recall reading an article that actually said that there's a shortage of 300 and something homes in 300 something thousand, sorry, I think it's about 320,000 homes in Portugal right now.
Yeah.
And the same article said, if you just converted all the abandoned homes, or I should say abandoned, but uninhabited homes that are available in Portugal, it would solve the problem. Like
yes.
That.
Well,
Right?
I am
A lot of them are tied up in red tape, though, and that's part of the challenge.
That's right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in that state, would they? There are over 700,000 empty and vacant houses in Portugal, says one. I mean, the problem with this, as soon as that figure gets out, everyone else starts talking about it, and we don't know if if that was an original fact and if it was checked or not. But we do know for sure that there is a significant an amount of empty inventory in this country. There's no question about that. And to have investment take place and development take place would mean a lot. Steve, go ahead. I think we need to wrap up anyway.
Yeah, I got to wrap up. I'm getting on to a completely full flight. I don't think I've been on a empty flight in the last maybe 2.5 years, 3 years. Every flight that I've been on going from the UK to Portugal has been booked solid completely. Going into Portugal, coming back, maybe half full.
Amazing.
But
Well,
I
make
just
sure you
wanted to say that
presentation. Maybe stand at the front, and after the cabin crew have done their thing, you could do a home miners presentation from the front.
I possibly might do that, but that's what I have a home miner shirt that I usually use.
All right, Steve. Enjoy. Have a great flight, and we'll see
Yes,
you in 2
thank you
weeks'
guys.
time.
Be safe, and
You
please
too.
contact me via WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and let me know. Okay.
All right. Have a safe flight.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Steve.
mate. All the best.
See you guys.
All the
Bye.
best. There he goes, Fernando. Just me and you now. Maybe you could wrap up and some sort of concluding thoughts. And I would love to hear your insight as a Foz de Relio, a son of Foz de Relio. Your favorite places around there, maybe restaurants or places to go. But just wrapping up in the big picture, investing in Portugal. Anything else you want to add to that conversation?
So I think just to really stress that point that I was trying to make at the end, I've heard stories of locals who had homes, just didn't know what to do with it. At some points, were just selling them for what they owed the bank, and even though it's worth more, right?
Yeah.
Because they just needed to be out of this. There are resources developing, right? And you don't have to just listen to what's available, by Portuguese people or Portuguese investors. And that, like, look around, educate yourselves in other markets as well. To understand what people are doing, right? And understand that there are ways to make money across this and to really change your life. So that's one.
Yes.
And then just generally speaking, to those who are looking to invest in Portugal, this is a beautiful time for it. There are, we know that the coastal areas have become incredibly popular, but we're starting to see other areas. Obviously, Évora has done very well.
Yep.
Elvish is doing very well, right? So you're seeing these other markets that are developing as well and attracting a ton of development and investment. There's a ton of opportunity there. Stay engaged, be involved with it, and I think there's a great opportunity in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you for that big picture. So going granular, drilling down into the Silver Coast and Foz de Relio. I've got 1 or 2 videos over at Good Morning Portugal. It's such a beautiful place, and you'll see that with that particular video link I've posted there. What are a couple of highlights for you with life over there, and what could people look forward to if they were a resident of Foz?
Oh man. So one of the things that I love the most about Foz is it's this beautiful beach, right? It's like the Lagoa and everything. You have the two sides, right? You have the ocean, which has some mild surfing. It's not like overly intense surfing, but it's a good place for starters.
Yeah.
But also has the Lagoa, which you can just walk in for ages and enjoy the cool water in the summer. Big beach. So it's this big, beautiful beach, but it feels like you're in rural Portugal because it's such a small town. It's quiet. Everyone knows each other. Like, it's this amazing feel of being right in town that I think that is unique along the coast, and where a lot of these beaches have developed. You see a lot of, like, if you look at Nazaré, right, and what Nazaré has developed into, or even somewhere Steve The Portugal, which is just a bit further up the coast from Foz. Tons of development, busy. It's getting loud, and Foz doesn't have that. It's still so quiet. It's almost like an escape with these beautiful sunsets, these incredible views. Yeah, you're in Lisbon in less than an hour.
Yes.
You're in Nazaré in like 35 minutes.
Yep.
Right. Óbidos is 10 minutes away. When I'm there, I just go to Óbidos just to have some lunch sometimes when I feel like it.
Yeah.
And you take in the view. So it's this amazingly centrally located place that has access to everything. That gives you that great balance of ocean life, coastal life, with the tranquility and peace of a small town. Some great restaurants right along the beach there that I love to hang out at. So it's a really good place.
Yeah, and Caldas de Rainha as well down the road, where you can get a coach or a train to other parts of the country, and you can be on a bus to Lisbon, I think, in less than an hour from Caldas.
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
One more thing, Carl, because you asked about the hidden gems. So I will tell you, if you go to Foz do Relio to the beach, go on Sundays after 2:00.
Okay.
Have you ever had a fartura? Do you know what that is?
Well, it sounds like either an invoice or a donut.
So it's called a mix of both. So not a fatura. A fartura is like, it's a very puffy kind of doughy pastry. Right? It's covered in cinnamon sugar.
Yes.
Fairs usually, right? So
That's
you usually
right.
only get those at the fairs, the carnivals, things like that. However, there's a small little stand. If you
Okay.
go by the beach in Portugal, there's like a mobile home kind of parking lot
Yes, I
there.
know exactly what you mean.
And just off to the side, there's this little stall that sells farturas every Sunday. So in the summer, they sell it every day.
Yeah.
But in the off season, which we're going into now, every Sunday after 2:00, they sell fresh farturas there. They're so good.
Thank you for that
And it's
tip.
the
My
go-to to
kids
have to
love
go and
them.
get them.
My kids love them because we've lost our shop that did the farturas in San Martino de Porto. It's now become
Yes.
a kebab shop.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a sort of mom and pop shop, is it, where they're making them still in Foz?
Yeah, it's this little mom and pop shop. It's usually the couple, and sometimes their son works with them as well. It's a great spot, honestly. So
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for that. My kids will certainly be thanking you for that. Great to meet you tonight, Fernando. Thanks for joining us from Canada. And I expect our paths will cross again on this Home Miners
Absolutely.
Hangout. So great to meet you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Carl.
Obrigado.
Have a great evening.
All right, take care. I'm
Good
going to roll the intro sequence of Good Morning Portugal, so why not join us tomorrow morning? Take care, everyone, and especially you, Fernando. Thanks for being here tonight. Ciao.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Carl.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, Gumpers.